Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to this newest installment of Filthy Sports. I'm your host, John Campia. I'm joined in studio by Jonathan Voico.
Good evening.
Ryan Myers.
What's up, sports fans?
And of course, most importantly, you guys are here. Thanks for being here and making our little show part of your day. And we start off today, we got a lot of NFL stuff to talk about, but we're going to start off today talking about this. Without exaggeration, maybe sometimes the phrase, one of the greatest of all time, is thrown around a little bit loosely sometimes in sports talk, but not when you're talking about Rafael Nadal. A guy who has literally been one of the dominant forces of nature in the world of professional tennis for decades.
Yeah.
It still feels like he's a kid. But he's around for like decades. He's been playing this game. And he has announced that he is calling it a career. His final event that he's going to play is next month in November at the Davis Cup. And that'll be it. Then he's putting his racket away for the last time and calling it a career. And what a career. He stands second all time with 22 Grand Slam titles, only topped by Djokovic, who's won 24. He's got the third most Grand Slam finals with 30, only behind Djokovic and Roger Federer. And he's won 14 French Opens. I want to put that in context for you. The next most wins at the French Open was 6 by Bjorn Borg.
Yeah.
Who won 6. Second all time at the French Open, 6.
Doubled him up.
More than doubled him up. Rafael Nadal, 14. Unless you just think, oh, he was the king of clay, but that's all he was good at. Put this also in context. He won 14 French Open Grand Slams, right? All right. Take those away. He's still, if you took away all of his French Open ones, he's still tied for 9th most all-time Grand Slam wins with 8, tied with Jimmy Connors and Andre Agassi. 8 Grand Slam titles without the French Open ties him with 2 of the other of the all-time greats, Andre Agassi and Jimmy Connors. Like, these are LeBron, Tom Brady, whatever kind of numbers, right? I mean, of course, he's playing in an era. And listen, we've been living through a tennis era where we've had Federer and Nadal and Djokovic. And hopefully tennis can raise up a new set of superstars. I mean, it's guys like these that made non-tennis followers watch tennis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And hopefully the next generation, I don't know that we're ever going to have like a trio like those playing at the same time, which is just boggles the mind. Anyway, you think about his career. What do you think about Nadal wrapping it up?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the major things. Also, like, he was the youngest man to ever win the Grand Slam ever in a year. So that's a crazy stat. He actually got a statue put out in front of the French Open
at Roland Garros
while he's still playing.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. So yeah, he's considered top 3 ever tennis player. So yeah, what a career, 20 years. You're right. Time goes by so fast. 20 years for him. LeBron's 20 years. Makes me feel super
I know. It
old.
still feels like yesterday that I was watching like Nadal playing in one of his earlier French Opens when he was just this kid who was just a magician on clay.
Yeah.
And he was like the kid. And I still think of Nadal as the kid until he takes his headband off and you see that he's balding.
Yeah. No hair.
And that's the only thing that doesn't make me feel like he's like 18 anymore. But anyway, guys, so this is how big he is, whether you follow tennis or not, you know the name Rafael Nadal. And one of the greatest of all time is hanging it up. And we at Filthy Sports salute him. And here's hoping he goes out relatively on top. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? Oh my, how the drama continues to unfold over at the New York Jets offices. Of course, you guys know they pulled the unprecedented move, at least for this regime in New York, of firing a coach mid-season, not even mid-season.
Early season, yeah.
5 games, 1 game out of first place. 5 games into the season, they remove Robert Saleh. Now, the owner, Woody Johnson, gave a line of bullshit like saying, oh, I've been thinking about this for years. If you've been thinking about this for years, you would have changed coaches during the offseason.
Yep.
You would have changed it during the offseason, not 5 games in. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest of all time. Also one of the best liars of all time. Because he lies a lot. Aaron Rodgers lies a lot. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play. I'll always admire him, but one of the biggest. It's like, saying like, pretending like, oh, I had no idea they were thinking about, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, okay, sure. But anyway, everybody knows that the big problem with the New York Jets, of course, is only half of the Jets. You see, the Jets, under Saleh, who is a defensive-minded coach, a defensive coordinator by nature, were the number 2 defense. Some people say they're the best defense in the NFL. Number 2 defense in the NFL. The problem was always on the offensive side of the ball, where Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback and his buddy Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator. Well, they have now made a change. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here because we're making a change. We're changing it up. Did they fire Aaron Rodgers' buddy? His boy?
John,
Nathaniel
be careful.
Hackett?
You might lose your job tomorrow if you suggest that.
That's right. I could find myself out of a job tomorrow. Aaron Rodgers calls YouTube and says, take Campy off. Of course not. But they've made a definitive action. They have taken away his responsibility, one of his key responsibilities as offensive coordinator. They didn't fire him. He's still the offensive. Yeah. He's still technically the offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. But they've given the play calling to the quarterback's coach, Todd Downing, who has been an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Yeah, for the Titans.
So he is still the quarterback coach. Nathaniel Hackett is still the offensive coordinator. But, I was watching Chris Sims a little bit earlier today, and he really put it well when he said this. None of this matters. This is just moving the deck chairs around on the deck of the Titanic.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows who's actually calling the plays.
Yeah, he's probably
it's
still
Aaron
coming
Rodgers.
He's probably still coming with, Hackett's probably still coming up with the scheme and stuff. And
yeah, they officially say that Downing is now going to come up with the game plan.
Yeah.
But we all know that's not true. We all know that Aaron Rodgers is still in charge. We all know that Aaron Rodgers is still going to be dealing with his buddy Hackett, and they're going to come up with the game plan. And sure, maybe it'll be Downing on the side. And all respect to Downing, I'm just saying, sure, he might be on the sideline calling in a play, but we all know Aaron Rodgers is going to take the suggestion and maybe do it and maybe not. Do his own thing, whatever him and Hackett came up with. I mean, I just, again, I am stunned at the charade that everybody just seems to be going along with. Even in sports media, everybody just seems to be going along with this charade. And again, it was nice hearing, Chris Sims kind of call it out for what it is right now. But again, Ryan, this just shows me again how dysfunctional the New York Jets are because, the new coach, Jeff Ulbrich, the interim coach, if you're going to make some moves, make them definitive. You're only the interim coach, but make some definitive changes. You're not actually getting rid of the offensive coordinator. Nobody is changing job titles. Again, it's just moving chairs around the deck of the Titanic. And how do you see this?
I don't think I mean, it's possible it's happened. I don't think I've ever seen something where a coach was just like pushed to the side and not like fired or released. Like he's still there, still on the team, but they don't have any, they have someone replacing his job, but they haven't switched titles.
Or at least part of his job.
I don't think I've ever seen that. Ulbrich said that he kind of talked with Rodgers about the change and Rodgers, publicly supported it. But I kind of feel like they should have just done this from the start. It's kind of like they fired the head coach when they should have just got rid of the offensive coordinator. And then they saw the blowback probably in the media and everything else. And they're like, well, we can't really fire Hackett because of Rodgers. So we just have to do something. So I feel like this is like what they should have just done from the start. And maybe Saleh could have stayed around, but I don't really get, it's just a circus. It really is. I don't know what their plan is for this. It's dumb.
It's shameful. Look how sad they're making Kevin Arnold.
Oh no.
He's almost in tears.
No.
Almost in tears.
The lifelong Jets fans. I mean, it's just a joke. And again, like what coach, I remember one of our viewers wrote in yesterday saying, we'll go out and get Belichick. Not just Bill Belichick. No coach worth their salt is going to come to the New York Jets.
I think this is even worse than just getting rid of Saleh. Like you're now like keeping a guy you should have gotten rid of. And I don't know, it just makes it kind of worse.
What I even would have kind of understood is if they fired Saleh and fired the offensive coordinator. Like then I'd say, well, wait a minute, Saleh's got you as the best defense in the NFL. Just make the change on offense and let's see what happens. But if they had at least fired him and Hackett and just brought in a new offensive coordinator, but I don't know. We'll see how this happens. Guys, the drama continues to unfold over at the good ship New York Jets. Ignore the leaks. We're fine. Whatever you guys make of this situation, Go ahead and jump on down to the comments below and let us know what you guys think. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this. Week 6 of the NFL season is upon us, and it starts off tonight with a great game. The 49ers versus the Seahawks. Now, the 49ers stunningly are 2-3 right now. I thought at minimum they'd be 4-1. But of course, they've had no Christian McCaffrey, and they've gone stints without Deebo Samuel, stints without George Kittle. And Ayuk was even still recovering.
Yeah,
he's not back up
start.
to 100% yet.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately for them, Jordan Mason has been playing lights out. He is averaging, the guy filling in for Christian McCaffrey is averaging 107 yards per game rushing. He's averaging over 100 yards per game. Now, then you might think, wow, they're really not missing McCaffrey. Well, he's also averaging 13 yards receiving per game. And that's where McCaffrey becomes, to me, the most valuable player in the NFL, because he becomes a player you have to account for every single play, run or pass. Right.
Especially
and that's where the difference
red zone, especially.
Yeah, especially in the red zone. But hey, Mason has been filling in so bloody well. He's been acquitting himself perfectly. Geno Smith, very quietly, he's completing 72% of his passes this season. Now, the Seahawks are 3-2. But Smith has been completing 72% of his passes. He's averaging almost 300 yards per game, like 293. The one knock on him is his touchdown to interception ratio isn't great. I think he's thrown 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. Could do a little better protecting the ball a bit. That's fine. But they've been playing quite well. Kittle's in tonight. Debo is playing tonight. Ayuk is playing tonight. Jennings is playing tonight. So we should see at least an 85 to 95% running offense. Now, of course, one of the problems is they're playing, if you're a San Francisco 49er fan, one of the problems you got to face is that the game is in Seattle. The 49ers are 0-2 on the road right now. Seattle, I believe, is 2-1 at home. So that helps them out. I still see San Francisco winning tonight. I think, they've hit some bumps. Purdy is still playing very good football. His completion percentage is good. He's throwing decent yardage. He's been managing the game well. Again, a couple of more turnovers than you'd like to see. But I think tonight we see San Francisco's offense really turn it on. I think they're going to contain Geno Smith. I'm not even going to say they win. I think they win by 14. I actually think they have not a complete blow up, but I think they have a convincing statement game tonight. Ryan, you're looking at this game tonight. What do you think of the key factors and who ultimately wins tonight?
One of the key factors to me is obviously you're talking about Jordan Mason running, 107 yards a game. Seattle has one of the worst run defenses.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to run the ball and then go to the, air.
Mason's going to eat up tonight.
Yeah. Seahawks, they're in the lead of the division, but some of their wins have come against the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Dolphins without Tua.
Yeah.
So they've kind of had some easier wins. But you mentioned being in Seattle.
Well, and they lost to Detroit, which is nothing wrong with that, but they also lost to the Giants.
Yeah.
So that's not great either.
You mentioned it being home field for Seattle. If you haven't ever been to that stadium, it is the loudest stadium I've ever been in for opposing teams to have to deal with. So that's always kind of the home field advantage. And they have the 12th man thing. Also, the Niners kicker Moody is out. So they had to get somebody.
I didn't know that.
So they had to sign a kicker named Matthew Wright to come in to kick for about a month, it sounds like. Having said all that, I'm with you. I think the Niners win. I think they need the win. Basically, if they lose this game, they're 0-3 against NFC West teams.
And
that
that's
puts
not
them in
good.
a giant hole.
Yeah.
So they have to win this game.
I mean, they're saying that McCaffrey, the last I heard, they're saying he could be back for either week 7, but I think week 7. When do they have their bye? Week 7 or week 8?
Ooh, I can look. I think it might
So
be.
I remember them saying like
soon.
they could either play him in the next game, or if they wait one more, then they have a bye and then he'll be back after that. So
they have their bye week
on.
Why am I not seeing?
Anyway, either way, they're saying he could come back for one game, or they wait till after the bye week to bring him back. But It sounded more optimistic that he might be back sooner rather than later.
They got bye week's week 9.
Oh, it's week 9.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was week 7 or 8. So I don't know, but they were sounding more optimistic now that he could be coming back. So we will just have to see how that works out. But who wins tonight?
I think the Niners win. They've been putting up good points. They just need to keep the lead in the fourth quarter, which they stunk at the last couple of times. So as long as they keep the lead, I think they'll be fine, obviously.
All right, guys, question is for you. That's the big game tonight. It should be a lot of fun. We're both picking the 49ers to win. Who do you see winning tonight between the 49ers and the Seahawks? Jump down to the comments and let us know what you think. And we'll see tomorrow how right or wrong we were. All right. With that down, guys, let's now take some time to go through the rest of the games. We won't go as into detail. We'll just keep this rather quick. But going through all the matchups coming up here in week 6. And there are some really good ones. And, don't laugh. I think this first one that we're going to talk about coming up on Sunday is really more interesting than you might think. It got more interesting to me after last week. The 1-4 Jacksonville Jaguars against the 3-2, surprisingly 3-2, Chicago Bears. Now, the reason I think this is fascinating is we saw it a little bit, but Caleb Williams, especially after last week, Caleb Williams is acclimating more and more to the NFL game. He is looking more and more week by week, bit by bit, like that player we saw at USC and playing in college last year, winning the Heisman and all that kind of stuff. Also, Jacksonville, finally, what were they on, a 10-game losing streak or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Jacksonville finally got the monkey off their back last week. It wasn't exactly a marquee win, but they finally got the win, beating your Indianapolis Colts. But they got that win, and listen, I'll tell you what, Lawrence, for the first time, didn't look like a guy who stinks anymore. So I'm just saying tonight, or Sunday's game, Jacksonville, Chicago, could be a more interesting game than people are thinking. I still think Chicago wins because even with Caleb Williams playing a little rough at first, they're still finding a way to win games. I think Chicago wins. What do you think?
Yeah. This game's in London also, so it'll be on early.
Oh, that's right.
On Sunday. I would pick the Bears also. I think Williams is starting to click with the offense. They have a good defense. The Jaguars are getting better. I just don't trust them. I feel like every time I think they're going to get a win, they stink it up. So, and they have a 6-5 record in London, so it's hit or miss. I would go the Bears for this game.
All right. Next game up, we got the Arizona Cardinals versus the Green Bay Packers, a team you went to go see play at SoFi Stadium last week.
Yeah, they kicked the crap out of the Rams, so that was fun.
So the Cardinals are 2-3. The Packers right now are 3-2. They got the winning record. Kyler Murray, who I'll be honest with you, I thought got way overpaid. I did. I think he got way overpaid. He's been putting up good numbers. 7 touchdowns this year to only 2 interceptions. So he's protecting the ball. He's slinging the ball around. He's got almost 1,000 passing yards already this season. His completion ratio is pretty good. And he looks like that Kyler Murray that we saw the potential in a while ago. Yeah. Again, they're finding ways to lose games. On the other hand, Jordan Love's still recovering from his injury. I think this guy's got a lot of upside, Jordan Love. Plus, I just think Green Bay is better in every facet of the game. I think they're a little bit better on defense. I think they're a little bit better on special teams. I think they're a little bit better on offense. For me, I look for Jacobs to run a lot. They're probably going to hand him the ball a lot, but I see this one being Green Bay beating the Cardinals. How about you?
Yep. It's in Lambeau. I agree with you. I think Murray's starting to click with Harrison Jr., but I think Love can pick on Arizona's secondary and score enough points and pull it out.
All right. Next game up, Ryan's Indianapolis Colts, who are 2-3. Big sigh. Against the Tennessee Titans, also big sigh. 1-3. To me, this is the most irrelevant game of the week. I really don't see either of these two doing a whole lot. Although old man Flacco, man, he had been like, but I don't think he's getting the start this week. I can't remember. Hearing he's getting the start this week.
He might still be,
but he lit it up the other week in a loss. Remember that?
Even last week he had 3 touchdowns. Yeah,
the dude is just, I can't believe what he did for the Browns last year and what he's kind of trying to carry the Colts on his thing. Anyway, this is a matchup of two teams that I really ultimately this year I don't think are going anywhere. Again, I think it's the irrelevant game of the week. I think the Tennessee Titans get the win though, at home over the Colts. How do you see it?
I don't think Flacco's getting the start. I just double checked. It looks like Richardson's going to start. I don't trust Levis, and he's supposed to start. when your coach asks you, what the F are you doing multiple times in the season, I don't go with that team.
Not the best
No, so
sign.
I'm going to go with the Colts.
All right. Next game up, the Houston Texans, who are suddenly finding themselves without the number one receiver in the NFL this year, Nico Collins. He's out, but they still got Stephon Diggs. They still have a lot of weapons. Yep. And of course, they got CJ Stroud at quarterback, who kind of exploded onto the scene last year. Look, the Texans are 4-1. They're coming off what I would call as a big win for them over Buffalo. Their defense has been playing surprisingly well.
Yeah.
I mean, they shut down Josh Allen pretty well. They've got great wins they got some so-and-so wins over Indianapolis and over Chicago, but they had a really good, I know it was against Jacksonville, but that was a good win for them because they faced some adversity and it was a little tighter than they thought it would be. Then again, that great win against Buffalo. I think they're going to build on the momentum of that heading in against the worst team in the NFL, the New England Patriots, who are starting a rookie quarterback.
Yep.
You know, they've benched Brissett, which I think was the right move to do, but we're about to see a very painful, long learning curve for May under center for the Patriots. So I'm thinking Houston wins this one and runs away with it. How about you?
Same thing. Basically, Drake May, first start. They don't have an O-line. Texans have a good defense, a good pass rush. He's going to be scrambling, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do, how much more he could do offensively than Brissett in a game like this. So, yeah, I definitely would go with the Texans on this, and it's probably going to be a blowout.
All right. Next game up. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 3-2 versus the New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay, man. So, you know how every once in a while there's like an MMA fight or a boxing fight where a boxer loses, but their stock actually goes up, like Roundtree in his fight against Pereira this past weekend? There was that great game the other week between the Bucs and the Falcons. And that was one where whoever ends up losing still looked pretty good. I mean, I thought the Bucs looked good. They're 3-2. They're playing the New Orleans Saints at 2-3. Look, I would pick the Bucs this week anyway, but Kamara may be out. They got him listed as questionable right now. Their quarterback, Saints quarterback, Derek Carr, is out.
Yep.
Who's been having a pretty decent year. 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's got a 2-to-1 ratio on touchdowns to interceptions. Looking good. Baker Mayfield, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He's thrown for almost 1,200 yards. Remember, this is the guy Cleveland ran out of town so they could sign Deshaun Watson. How's that looking for you? So, of course, you got the Bucs coming off that loss to Atlanta, but good wins against their first one of the season against Washington. Everybody thought, who cares? Look where Washington is now. They beat Washington. They beat Detroit. They beat the Eagles. I mean, this is a strong-looking team. The Saints have lost 3 in a row. Their biggest weapon is questionable. Their quarterback is out. I think this could be a pretty handy win for the Bucs. How about you?
Same thing. I picked Tampa Bay for this. Tampa Bay did have to move their practice this week to New Orleans due to the hurricane.
Yeah.
So there was some struggle with that, but I think with Carr out, there's no hope for them for this game.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. Cleveland Browns, versus the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 extremely disappointing teams right now. I think that there could be a coaching change in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I actually think we both left Philly off our most disappointing teams talk the other day.
We did, because I never had super high expectations for them this year, to be honest with you. Like, listen, a lot of people, when you think about teams, everybody thinks about the flashy positions. The quarterback, obviously, your wide receivers, your running back. I told people in the offseason, listen, them losing Jason Kelce at center is not a small deal. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen some mishaps happening as a result. The tush push hasn't worked as well. We've seen some snapping issues, stuff like that. The protection hasn't been as good, right? So I never really had super high expectations. Right now, the Eagles are 2-2.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put them on my most disappointing list, but this should be exactly what the doctor ordered. They're playing the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson, who I'm sure will turn in another memorable performance. Jalen Hurts, again, he's turning the ball over.
Struggling, yeah.
Not only the interceptions, he's fumbling. He's not securing the ball a lot. We're not seeing him using his athleticism the way we're traditionally looking at the way he does it. Still, this is a game that Philadelphia would love to get a win and get some momentum going. And I think playing the Cleveland Browns is the one to do it. Obviously, the Eagles are coming off that loss to Tampa Bay. We've got the Browns. Listen, they lost their last game to Washington. Again, turns out Washington is pretty damn good.
Yep.
So there's nothing really wrong with that. They lost to Dallas when everybody still thought Dallas was going to be a powerhouse team. So that's fine. But they lost to the Giants. They lost to the Raiders. I don't see how they beat Philadelphia. How do you see it?
Same. It's in Philly. The game's in Philly. They need the win. They have to keep pace with all the other teams in the NFC East. They have to win. If they don't win this game, if Philly doesn't win this game, the coach might be in trouble
I'll
too.
guarantee it. It's not a might.
Yeah.
If the Eagles lose this Sunday to the Cleveland Browns, I guarantee you next Sunday there's going to be a new coach on the sidelines of the Philadelphia.
I hear there's one available.
That's true. Xerxes is available.
Xerxes is available. Bring him on in. All right. That game down. Let's move on to what, when the season began, I would have said, well, this is kind of a throwaway game.
Yeah.
But it's real damn interesting. The Washington Commanders against, I think, the number one offense in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, like, when you think about the Baltimore Ravens, you think defense, right? But they have been lighting it up. Total yards per game, scoring per game, all this kind of stuff. I mean, Lamar Jackson, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, running the ball. You remember last year's like, I'm gonna protect my body more. I'm gonna be. I feel like this year he's kind of thrown that out a little bit. Like
he's running around.
Bootlegging it a lot more. He's looking great. Daniels is a revelation this year. Like, Daniels on Washington is this year's CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
He's thrown for almost 1,200 yards. He's got, only 2 picks. He's protecting the ball. Washington looks great. But listen, I'll tell you right now, Baltimore, for a 3-2 team, they're arguably the best team in the league right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're obviously we're talking Chiefs, we're talking the Vikings, but at 3-2, Baltimore's arguably, because they dropped the first game to the Kansas City Chiefs,
which was at the very end. The guy's toe was on the line in the end zone.
Yes, a game they very easily could have won.
Yeah.
Easily could have won. Then they lost a disappointing 1 by 3 to the Raiders.
Yeah,
but since then, they beat Dallas. Then they beat up Buffalo.
Yeah.
Totally beat them up.
Yep.
And then they won that thriller against the Bengals, who is the best 1-4 team maybe ever in the NFL. They beat them. They have been looking spectacular and great. Listen, Daniels ain't going to win every game.
No.
I think they're going to get beat up by the Ravens this week, but it'll be another learning experience. And don't worry about Washington. They're going to be fine. They look really good. Anyway, so I'm picking the Ravens on this. What about you?
I'm going to go Commanders.
Really? Yeah, you're picking the upset.
I think so. I think Daniels has shown a lot this season already. Baltimore has a bad pass defense, so I think he can do some stuff. I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna go with Commanders on this. I think they can pull it out in a close one.
All right. Let's move on to this. Next game up, the Los Angeles Chargers, as the Los Angeles Rams are on a bye week, so the only LA team playing this week, visiting the 3-2 Denver Broncos. Bo Nix, who in the first couple of weeks, everybody thought, well, this is going to be a bust.
Yeah.
Which you call them that way too. I mean, they lost to Seattle, which turns out was not that bad of a loss. Mm-hmm. Then they lost to Pittsburgh, 13-6. They couldn't move the ball. But since then, they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat the New York Jets in one of the biggest barn burner games in history, 10-9. But they beat Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And then last year, they beat the Raiders. Say what you will. They're winning the games they should win. And they, lost a couple heartbreak, but they seem to be starting to move right here. Justin Herbert has had some struggles this season. That's fine, but his TD to interception ratio still isn't bad. 5 TDs, 1 interception. He's still protecting it well. Not thrown for a lot. He's been bit by the injury bug a little bit. All that kind of stuff. I actually think the Chargers win this game. I think Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I say
Yeah.
Chargers win. What about you?
The same thing. The Chargers are coming off a bye week. I think Denver's offense is very one-dimensional. Bo Nix really hasn't been the reason why they've been winning those games. It's mostly Denver's defense. So I think Harbaugh gets them prepared enough to outscore them and keep them ahead. So yeah, I'd go with the Chargers also. I think it'll be close though. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game.
All right. Next one up. The Pittsburgh Steelers at 3-2, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-3. I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial to a lot of people.
What?
Everybody's been talking because, you had the Steelers started 3-0, and everybody was raving about Justin Fields, right? Because Wilson was supposed to be the starter. Wilson still is officially the starting quarterback, but he's still injured. Justin Fields, but when they went 0-3 and everybody's raving about Justin Fields, and I like Justin Fields. I thought he really started to come around in his final season in Chicago.
Yep, for sure.
But I'm watching those games. I'm like, I'm sorry, he doesn't look that good. And I'll tell you what, I thought straight up he looked bad against Dallas. And if you look at those games they won, against the Chargers, against the Falcons, and against the Broncos, what did they put up? They won 18-10, 13-6, and 20-10. It's not, but the thing is, I'm not saying Justin Fields has played bad. I'm just saying that people were talking about Justin Fields like, oh my God, the 3-0, but
no,
they've been winning because of their defense. Because in those 3 games, the Steelers defense gave up 26 points in total over those 3 games. That's why they were 3-0. And in the last couple of games, they did get 24 against the Colts, but that's their highest scoring game so far. Through 5 games, the most points they put up in a single game was 24. They've scored 17, 10, 6, 10, and then that game at 24.
And the Colts have a horrible defense, so that's probably why it's 24.
Yeah, and that's why they got the 24.
Yeah.
So, look, I still think the Raiders are terrible. Minshew is now benched. I think they said the Raiders.
Aiden O'Connell's
is going to come in. Yeah. So that's going to be a little bit shaky. So I still think Pittsburgh gets this win, but I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Fields because I think Wilson's starting next week. Yeah. I really do. Unless Fields comes out of the gate and just like blows everybody away, I really think we're going to see Wilson starting next week. But
yeah, I'm going with the Steelers for the win too. I think you hit the nail on the head. As long as Fields doesn't make a ton of mistakes, the Steelers will win. That's basically don't turn it over. And yeah, like you said, Russell Wilson's starting to take more snaps in practice. I guess his calf injury is getting better. So unless he lights it up, I would think they would try to go to Russell Wilson because at this point, if you're not putting up 20 plus points a game, you have to against some of these teams. You're not always going to be able to rely on your defense. So they're going to have to make a change to see if Russell can still do it. He didn't do it on the Broncos. So hopefully he can do it on the Steelers. No, but in his
final season, he started to show flashes again. Again, it was just a bad team.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bad team overall. And yeah, he was terrible his first year in Denver, and he wasn't great overall, but you started to see him come around. But I'm going to be very curious to see how Russell Wilson does on the Steelers when he gets a chance to get under center. All right. Next game up. The Atlanta Falcons, who again, one of the best games of the year. Well, games of the year, it's tough. That Atlanta Tampa Bay game, but you also got to look at last week's Bengals and Ravens game too. But there have been some awesome games. The Atlanta Falcons versus the Red Rifle.
Forgot about Dalton.
Over at the Carolina Panthers. Now, I think this is an easy one to pick. I think the Falcons are going to win. But listen, I'm going to tell you this. My friends have laughed at me. I have been on the Kirk Cousins train since he was in Washington. I think this dude is money. I remember too I was playing in a poker tournament. That game when he was quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings and they played the Indianapolis Colts. You know this game where Indianapolis Colts were winning by 517 points. What was it? Was it like
it was 20-something points,
or was it 30-something to nothing?
Yeah. What I try to block those things out.
I can't remember the exact score.
It's a haze.
And I just remember myself, I think they're going to come back and win this thing. And they came back and won it. That game they had against the Bucs was incredible. I look, I know all the arguments against him, okay? I know them. You don't have to say them. but I believe in him, and I think they're gonna make. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think they're going to make noise. But anyway, I think this is an easy win for them this week. Although, I mean, there's no doubt. Ever since they put Dalton in at quarterback, they have looked like a different team.
Well,
they look like a much more competent. I mean, even in their losses to Cincinnati, even in their loss to Chicago, they just look like a team that's got a little bit more together with him at quarterback.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's more competent. No, the turnovers aren't there. I definitely think Falcons are going to win this game. I think the offense is starting to click. Obviously, from the last game, he threw 500 yards. But yeah, I've always liked him too as a quarterback. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Falcons to get an easy win in Carolina.
All right. Next up, the Bengals against the New York Giants. This Bengals team, I said it earlier, but I really believe it. I think this is the best 1-4 team that the NFL has ever seen. That Baltimore game was crazy. They got the win against Carolina. Okay, big deal. They played really well against Washington. Again, as it turns out, Washington's a really good team. But that was a great one, 38-33. They lost to Kansas City, which they shouldn't have lost if the refs do their job. But by 1 point, they lost to the defending Super Bowl champions, the 2-time back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions. They lost by 1. No explanation for the egg they laid in week 1 against the New England Patriots, which still stands as the Patriots' only win. So whatever. I think this is the best 1-4 team in football. I think the New York Giants, although they got that win against Seattle last week, I still think that team's a bit of a mess. So I'm going to pick the Bengals to get their second win this weekend. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bengals too. I think their offense is super good, hitting all strides. Their defense is not good. I think the Giants have gotten better over the season so far, but I do think the Bengals should be able to score enough points to get this win.
All right. Guys, that's our picks for that, but we got one more game to cover that I think is particularly interesting for a couple of different reasons. The Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, let's look, last week they got away with one, right? They won on that last gasp, 4th and goal, where the guy was over the line by 2 inches. All right, so well done. But I think this team is a mess. They obviously got their asses handed to them by the New Orleans Saints, who turns out aren't that good of a team. Then they got beat by Baltimore. No shame in that. Then they beat the New York Giants. Who cares? They beat the Cleveland Browns in week 1. Who cares? And then they got they got a good win against Pittsburgh. But again, a game they could have easily lost. And another game that they didn't look that good.
No.
Like, neither of them look that good. So right now, the Dallas Cowboys, who again, it seems like every year the Dallas Cowboys come into the year with high expectations. Okay?
Well, they should. They have the highest paid quarterback of all time. So.
Okay, can I just say this? Look, I like Dak Prescott. I do. He's got a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, like 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It just always feels like he throws a pick at the worst possible time. And then sometimes he'll do that and the team will bail him out. That's fine. But listen, he's thrown for over 1,400 yards this season. He's looking solid. I think Dak Prescott is a very good quarterback. I don't know what, what's his name, owner in Dallas again. Why am I freezing?
Jerry Jones.
I don't know what Jerry Jones was thinking, making Dak Prescott the highest paid player in NFL history. That I don't get. I mean, I would take Dak Prescott on my team any day. I think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's a top 3 quarterback. And he's certainly not the highest paid player in the NFL kind of quarterback. But hey, whatever. You pay who you got to pay. You pay what you got to pay. But they're coming in here. I feel like the Dallas Cowboys right now need a statement win. Again, a win against the Cleveland Browns does not tell us anything about your team. A win against the New York Giants does not tell us anything about your team. You squeaked one out against Pittsburgh, but right now it's still kind of up in the air as to what Pittsburgh is. I think they absolutely need to get a statement win, and they're playing a team that would absolutely be a statement win. Playing the Detroit Lions, whose only loss was against a very good Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. That's it. They got wins over Pittsburgh. They beat the Rams. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Seahawks. Like a win over Detroit. And they're playing in Dallas. That could be a good key win. So I think they need this badly. But even at 3-1, I think this is a very important win needed for Detroit. Was last year a fluke? It's still a little bit up in the air. I mean, again, they've looked very good this year. Jeff Goff has looked good this year. Jared Goff, sorry, has looked very good this year. But if you go into Dallas against a Dallas team that does not look like it's clicking on all cylinders and lose, I think that changes the perceptions of the Detroit Lions a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. If they have a game like Cincinnati and the Ravens and it's a shootout, goes down to the wire and they lose, I don't think they should hang their heads. That's fine. But if they go in there and lose by 10, 14 or something like that, I think this is going to take a lot of win out of the sales. So if we're going to ask ourselves the question, which one of these two teams needs this win the most? I think they both badly need this win. It's not that their seasons are in danger if they don't, but I can say the Dallas Cowboys need this win a little bit more because if they lose, like if Detroit loses, they're 3-2. That was on the road.
Yeah.
Fine. If Dallas, who is 0-2 at home, when for the past 24 months, it looks like they couldn't possibly ever lose at home.
Yep.
They're 0-2 at home. If they go 0-3 and they drop down to 3-3, I think there are going to be a lot of questions being asked. So first of all, I think Detroit will win this game, but I think, and the question, who needs to win the most? I think Dallas needs this win the most. How do you see it?
So overall, I kind of been in agreement with you. They both need the win. They're both second in their division, so they're trailing another team. Obviously, the Lions are behind the Vikings, who are undefeated, and Dallas is behind the Commanders. The Lions have lost the last 6 times they've played the Cowboys.
I didn't know that.
So they're 0-6.
I know they lost their last couple. I didn't know
so
they were
they haven't
0-6.
won in a long time. Their Lions are coming off a bye week, so they've had time to prepare. Cowboys D's banged up. They don't really have a secondary or anything. And then Dallas goes into a bye week after this. To me, I think the Lions need it more. I think they need to prove a point that they can beat this team, and they have to keep pace with the Vikings. They haven't lost.
Yeah,
so
because the Vikings are in
the
the position to run away with it if they don't keep up.
The Cowboys need it also. They need to keep pace with the Commanders. They need to show that they can win some of these games against better teams.
Who would have thought before the season start that we'd ever say the words, you need to keep up with the Commanders?
Yeah.
Who thought that?
Yeah. They both need it, but I would think the Lions need it more to say they can beat the Cowboys, because they're probably going to play them in the playoffs. They did last year again, or they could. And then just like games coming up, Dallas has Niners, Falcons, Eagles, Texans, Commanders, and Lions have Vikings, Titans, Packers, Texans, Jaguars. So both of the teams play more division rivals. So they need to get these wins to make sure they can stay in the hunt in the playoffs. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Lions.
All right, guys. Now, of course, there is one other Week 6 game, and that's the Monday night game between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. But we're going to save that and talk about that game on Monday. So, guys, those are our picks. That's our little preview and our picks of this weekend's games. How do you see them? Whatever you guys think, jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we got a few minutes left here, so we're going to take some of your questions. If you are watching live right now, and you got to be watching live, go ahead and jump into the comment section there or into the live chat. And if you see, I just put in a thing that's like, format your question like this. Put in all capital letters, question, and then write your question. That way we know you're talking to us and asking a specific question in there for us. So, all right, that down, Jonathan. What do we got?
Oh, wow, these things like popped in. They got these questions in here quick. So, sorry, we'll roll with this one. Question from Only Giovanni. Do you know of Tom Grossi? He's my favorite NFL YouTuber and does a lot of chaotic good. He won the Fan of the Year last year for the 30 Stadiums in 30 Days tour.
No, never heard of. That's fine. I don't think he's probably ever heard of me, but no, I'm not familiar with that particular YouTuber. All right, what's next?
We got Jason says, John goes for 2 teams, 49ers, and whoever Chiefs are playing.
You know, it's funny. By the way, you're not not wrong about the 49ers. And here's the funny thing about it. I mean, the team I loathe the most is Dallas. I loathe Dallas. But there's kind of the same thing with Dallas and Kansas. Here's the funny thing. There's nobody on Dallas I don't like. There's nobody, I don't dislike the coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dislike Dak. I just have always rooted against the Cowboys. Same thing is true with the Chiefs. I'm almost always rooting, unless the Chiefs are playing the Cowboys, in which case I will root for the Cowboys.
We just won't watch.
But I mean, I love Andy Reid. I love Travis Kelce. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. They've got a lot of great pieces. There is nobody I don't like on the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't explain it. And yet, unless they're playing the Cowboys or maybe one or two other teams, I will always cheer against the Chiefs. And I don't know why. Because I like almost everybody and I know I don't like Jerry Jones as an owner. Yeah. So maybe that's the one thing for Dallas. But I mean, I like the ownership in Kansas. I love the coach in Kansas. I like most of the players on Kansas. I don't know why I root against them so much.
Love
I really
Taylor
don't.
Swift.
Do you have any teams like that you just find
I hate the
rooting against?
Patriots. They kick the Colts' ass too much. So
well, see, that makes logical sense.
I didn't
right?
like them for that. Other than that, no, I don't really mind any team.
You know,
I mean, I always cheer for my teams, but I don't actively root against anybody except I don't even care about the Patriots anymore. It's mostly Brady just winning all the time with killing my Peyton Manning's dreams.
That, you know what, you might have just put the finger on why I cheer against the Dallas Cowboys so much is that when I was a kid, the team, because I grew up right across the border from Buffalo. I was a 45-minute drive from Buffalo. I followed the Buffalo Bills for most of my younger life, right? And of course, 2 years in a row, the Buffalo Bills played the Dallas Cowboys, and Dallas Cowboys beat the Buffalo Bills. Maybe that's the deep-rooted psychology about why I always cheer against
mine
the
is
Cowboys.
the Celtics and the Patriots. They always beat my teams. I just don't. So
all right, let's get time for one more. What's next?
Okay, question from Hosea. Who wins, Robert Whitaker or Chimaev in UFC 308?
It's for, okay, look. Robert Whitaker, I think, should be a UFC Hall of Famer. He was so dominant for so long. And then it just kind of became, he can beat everybody except Stylebender. He can beat everybody except Izzy, right? So he kind of became the de facto gatekeeper. Chimaev's for real, man. I think Whitaker loses. I do. I think Whitaker loses. I think it's going to be a great fight. I wouldn't put any money on it. I wouldn't bet $5 on that fight. But if you're foot to the fire, I think I'll have to say Chimaev wins that fight. And all right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Filthy Sports. Thank you so much for being here and joining us today. We're going to wrap things up and head off and go watch that football game tonight. Go see the 49ers play the Seahawks. We hope you guys have great plans for your evenings as well. Don't forget, the Filthy Sports podcast is Monday through Thursday. So just so you know, we will not have an episode tomorrow, but we will be back again, of course, on Monday, and we'll see how right or terribly wrong we were with our picks for week 6. Hey, guys, listen, this is a brand new YouTube channel. This is the end of our very first week. So if you can do us a favor and help us out by subscribing to the channel, leave comments down below, click the thumbs up button, very simple things to do. All that kind of stuff will help people discover our brand new channel here. And you know what? For our first week, we've got over 6,000 subscribers already. So that's pretty good. That's
Not too shabby.
That's way ahead of where I thought we would be after our first week. So thank you to all of you guys who have already subscribed. And so for Jonathan Voico,
See you guys.
Ryan Myers.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much. My name is John Campion, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.